What if I told you the kindest person you know is one insult away from exploding? You've seen it, the INFJ who's always patient, always listening. Until they're not. Why do these gentle souls snap so suddenly? And why does it feel like an ice-cold wake-up call? This isn't about mood swings. This is about years of silent storms finally breaking free. Let's dive into the raw, unspoken truth behind why INFJs reach their breaking point and what it really means. 1. The INFJ facade. Why quiet doesn't mean fine. INFJs are experts at hiding their true feelings. They'll smile, nod, and ask you how your day was, even if theirs was a disaster. But behind that calm face, their mind is racing. They're thinking about the friend they comforted, the coworker they helped, and the stranger's problems they couldn't stop worrying about. The problem? Nobody notices when they're drowning. Society calls them good listeners, but no one listens to them. Over time, this silence becomes a heavy burden. Imagine holding your breath for years. Eventually, you'll gasp for air. That's what an INFJ snap is. A desperate gasp after being suffocated by their own kindness. 2. Emotional sponges. When absorbing pain backfires, INFJs don't just care about others. They feel others' emotions like their own. If you're sad, they're sad. If you're angry, they'll try to fix it. But here's the catch. They rarely let anyone do the same for them. They collect everyone's stress like a sponge, soaking up tears, frustrations, and drama until they're dripping with exhaustion. Think of it like a cup overflowing. One day, a single drop, a rude comment, a broken promise, makes everything spill over. To outsiders, it looks sudden, but in reality, that cup's been full for years. 3. The last straw myth, how INFJs gaslight themselves. You've heard the phrase, the last straw broke the camel's back. For INFJs, that last straw is rarely the real issue. They're masters at downplaying their pain. They'll tell themselves, it's not that bad, or I'm overreacting, even when they're hurting. But every time they ignore their needs, it adds weight to an invisible backpack. That backpack holds every time they bit their tongue, every compromise they made, and every lie they swallowed to keep peace. When they finally snap, it's not about the last straw, it's about the 10,000 straws before it. 4. Boundary violations. Crossing lines you didn't know existed. INFJs hate confrontation. Instead of saying, don't call me after 10 p.m., they'll hint, I'm usually asleep by 10. When you ignore those hints, they won't yell, they'll just shut down. Why? Because they assume people who care will notice their unspoken boundaries. When you keep crossing those lines, they don't feel angry, they feel betrayed. Their silence isn't permission, it's a test. Fail that test too many times, and they'll cut you off without explanation. To you, it's sudden. To them, it's survival. 5. The perfectionism trap. When idealism meets human reality. INFJs dream of a world where everyone is kind, fairness wins, and love solves everything. But real life, it's messy. People lie. Systems fail. Love isn't always enough. This gap between their ideals and reality eats at them. They'll pour energy into fixing relationships, projects, or social issues, only to burn out when things don't magically improve. Imagine painting a masterpiece, only for someone to scribble over it. That's how INFJs feel when their efforts crash into indifference. Their snap isn't anger. It's heartbreak over a world they can't save. 6. The doormat breaking point. Why kindness isn't weakness. INFJs are labeled pushovers because they avoid fights. But kindness isn't weakness. It's a choice. They give chances not because they're naive, but because they believe people can change. But when you mistake their patience for permission to walk all over them, that's game over. One day, they'll flip from understanding friend to fearless judge. They'll list every time you took them for granted, every lie you told, every promise you broke. It's not revenge. It's truth served cold. And it hits harder because they're right. 7. NIT loop. When overthinking becomes self-destruction. INFJs live inside their heads. When stressed, their mind becomes a broken record. They'll replay conversations, obsess over hidden meanings, and question their worth. Why did they ignore me? Did I do something wrong? Am I not good enough? This loop, called the NIT loop, traps them in a maze of doubt. The longer they stay there, the more they disconnect from reality. Eventually, even small triggers, a missed call, a sarcastic joke, feel like proof that everything is wrong. That's when they snap. Not at you, but at the war inside their mind. 8. The loneliness of being the therapist friend. Everyone goes to INFJs for advice. They're the midnight crisis hotline, the relationship guru, the unpaid life coach. But who do they call when they're struggling? No one. They're so used to being the strong one that they forget how to ask for help. Their pain piles up in a locked room inside their heart. One day, that door bursts open, and years of loneliness pour out. Their explosion isn't about the present. It's about every night they cried alone, thinking nobody cared. 9. Fey overload. When people-pleasing burns to ash, INFJs have a radar for moods. They'll change their opinions, hide their needs, or fake a smile just to keep peace. But pretending to be okay when they're not is like holding a beach ball underwater. Eventually, it rockets to the surface. The more they people-please, the more they lose themselves. Imagine wearing a mask so long you forget your own face. Their snap is the mask cracking, a raw, unfiltered scream of, "This isn't me anymore." 10. The cold exit. Why INFJs leave without a word. When INFJs are done, they don't slam doors, they vanish. No fights, no closure, just silence. You'll wonder, what did I do wrong? But here's the truth. They warned you 100 times. They hinted, they sighed, they pulled away slowly. You just didn't notice. Their exit isn't cruel, it's self-defense. Staying would mean losing themselves, and they'd rather be alone than pretend anymore. 11. The aftermath. What happens when an INFJ explodes? After the storm, INFJs don't feel powerful. They feel guilty. They'll replay their outburst, cringing at every word. But deep down, there's relief. Finally, their pain isn't invisible. The explosion isn't the end, it's a reset. They'll rebuild boundaries, say no without apology, and protect their energy like a lioness guarding her cubs. The old INFJ, they're gone. What's left is someone stronger, wiser, and finally free. Conclusion. INFJs don't snap because they're dramatic. They snap because they've been silent for too long. Their coldness isn't cruelty. It's the cost of loving a world that rarely loves them back. So if you care about an INFJ, don't wait for the explosion. Listen to their silence. Notice their hints. And remember, even the strongest souls have limits. Respect them before they learn to stop giving second chances.